I don't really know why I'm recording this. Maybe so I don't forget what happened, or to see if anyone believes it. But I know what I heard, and the sound is still stuck in my head. It happened 2 days ago, in the desert near Gallup, New Mexico. I was driving back home after a job, late afternoon, low sun, strong wind. I saw a dog on the shoulder, thin, trembling. I thought it was a shepherd mix with a coyote, maybe. It looked exhausted. It stopped in the middle of the road and was almost hit. So I stopped. It came right up to me, unafraid. But the way it looked at me was different, like it was trying to understand what I was. It had light eyes, almost human. I brought him with me. I gave him water. I gave him food. He slept in the back seat. That night, when I stopped at a motel in Grants, I heard him crying, that low, sort of choked sound. Then came the other sound, a laugh. But it wasn't a dog's. It was a man's laugh. Short, raspy, wrong, like he was mimicking someone, testing it out. And it was coming from inside the truck. I ran out. I stood in the parking lot, shaking. The dog was still inside, looking at me through the window, his mouth open like he was smiling. If you ever hear your name called in the desert, don't answer. My name is Daniel. I'm 33. I've lived in Gallup since I was a kid. My job is simple. I deliver parts and tools between garages and warehouses on the I-40 and the smaller roads. Old F-150, 2001, white, torn seat. Smells of gas and cold. Coffee. I don't earn much, but I know every exit, every roadside where the wind never stops. I drive alone. I like it. AM radio on, sometimes an old tape in the cassette player. I stop at cheap motels when the stretch is long. I eat dinner at whatever's open. I sleep lightly. That day I was coming from Grants, driving slowly because the heat was strange, too humid for the desert. In the back seat I had 2 boxes of oil filters and a belt. Nothing heavy. I had promised myself to get home early and wash my hands before getting into bed. It had been days since I'd spoken to anyone but a cashier or a counter guy. My ex sent me a text demanding a payment. I read it in a gas station parking lot and left it for later. I always leave things for later. I grew up with a dog at home, 2 mutts. I know the difference between a scared animal and a sick animal. I know when an animal trusts. It's the look in their eyes and the weight of their body when they lean on you. What I saw on the roadside that afternoon looked like it needed help. Thin, dirty. But the way it stood in the middle of the lane, looking at me, was like, I don't know, like we were the ones who had to decide something. I honked, and it didn't run. It just looked at me. I stopped. I called out, "Hey, come here." It came. It was thirsty, yes. I gave it water in a lid from a container I had in the toolbox. It drank, but too slowly, like it was mimicking the idea of drinking. No lapping sound, just its throat moving. I noticed its paws, long nails but too clean for an animal that was wandering. Its coat was rough, the color of sand. It didn't smell like wet dog. It had a dry smell of hot earth and iron. I put a blanket in the back seat and he lay down, facing me, as if he wanted to watch me drive. On the way to the motel, I tested a few names. Buddy, Rex, Joe, nothing. Not even an ear twitched. When I whistled, he turned his head at the same angle as my shoulders, like he was mirroring me. He didn't wag his tail, clear eyes, almost grey. When I stopped at a traffic light, he looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, not the street. I stopped at the same cheap motel as always, exit 81, ground floor room, almost at the end of the hall. I left the dog in the truck because I didn't know if the motel owner would make a fuss. I cracked the window open a bit. I left water and half a hamburger. I locked up. I was tired. I checked in. The woman didn't even look up, just slid the key and asked for a card. Too late for conversation. In the room, the air conditioner made an irregular buzzing sound, 3 seconds loud, 2 seconds soft, and repeat. The yellow light made everything worse. I took a quick shower, heard the pipes creak, heard footsteps in the hallway, people smoking leaning against the railing. Nothing out of the ordinary. I looked through the curtain. The truck was there, the dog lying down. It seemed to be sleeping. That's when I heard the first laugh. Low, wrong. It came from the parking lot. I froze. I opened the curtain just enough. The dog's eyes were open, its mouth slightly ajar, like it was smiling. The laugh stopped. I stood in the dark until my breathing returned to normal. I convinced myself it was a TV from another room, or drunk people. It was easier. I put the chair propped against the door, an old habit. I do that when I travel. It's not a fear of anything supernatural. It's people. People are worse. I lay down with my clothes on again, couldn't sleep. A few hours later, I went outside to check on the dog. He was sitting up, now in the front seat. I was sure I had left him in the back. The window was still just a crack. The doors were locked. I tested the handle, locked. He looked at me and tilted his head the same way I did. I went to the front desk to ask if anyone had a master key to the parking lot or if my truck had been tampered with. The night guy said no, nobody touches guest cars. He spoke without looking at me, like he was repeating a rule. I walked back slowly, feeling the wind change. The smell of iron seemed stronger. I tried calling the dog again, quietly, with some other name. Nothing, no reaction. Then, without thinking, I said my own name, just to myself, like a swear word. Daniel! The dog's ears immediately perked up. He turned his muzzle towards the sound. He got closer to the glass. I whispered my name again. He put his paw on the window and waited as if he understood. The next morning, the sun was already hitting the truck's hood when I went down with gas station coffee in hand. The wind was warm, still, and I could hear the hum of the power lines far away. The dog was still inside, sitting, looking straight ahead, quiet. I opened the door and he didn't move, didn't even blink. When I touched his shoulder, he took a deep breath, as if waking up, but without a startle, without a natural animal reaction. It seemed like he was waiting. I gave him a piece of bread. He smelled it, licked it once and let it drop. He didn't even seem hungry. I said, "Let's go home, come on." He jumped out slowly, but the way his paws hit the ground was strange. It didn't make the right sound, almost weightless, as if the sand didn't give way. I got back on the road. Silence. That silence only the desert has, which swallows the sound of the engine. The dog was lying down, his head on the seat. Sometimes I looked in the rearview mirror and swore his eyes were open, but when I turned around, they looked closed. After about 20 minutes, I noticed footprints on the side of the road, deep, fresh marks heading in the same direction as me. Not tires, they looked like bare footprints, large, spread out as if someone had been running. I couldn't tell if they were new or old, but the shape chilled me. They had 5 toes, human. I stopped the truck. I got out. The dust rose to my knees. The dog got out too. It stood still looking at those marks and started to growl. Low, hoarse, as if the sound came from inside his chest. The wind stopped. No birds. No cars passed. I looked back. The marks went as far as the middle of the lane and disappeared. I got back in the truck. As I was about to start the engine, I heard a sound behind me, a dry snap, like someone stepping on a twig, but there was nothing there to break. I looked in the mirror. The dog had his head turned towards the window, ears down, teeth showing. Then I heard another sound. A whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it came from close by. Too close. I locked the truck. I held the key in the ignition, but I waited. The sound repeated. A slow breath, then the same whisper. The voice was similar to mine. I drove out of there fast. I drove without looking in the rearview mirror until I reached a rest stop. About 2 hours later, the sun was high and the dog lay in the truck's shadow, quiet. I washed my face in the bathroom sink and tried not to think. When I came back, he wasn't there. No trace in the dust. None. I looked for about 10 minutes and started to think I had imagined everything. But when I opened the driver's door to leave, he was sitting in the back seat. Dry, clean, no dust on his paws. That night, back in the motel room, I heard the noise. a slow scratching on the wall behind the bed, and a breathing sound, heavy, as if someone was trying to keep pace with mine. When I got up to turn on the light, the dog was already inside the room. I hadn't opened the door. I don't remember screaming, I just remember standing there, hand on the switch and my body frozen. The dog was there, on the rug, near the door, with his muzzle low, looking straight at me. I didn't hear the doorknob turn, I didn't hear footsteps, nothing. He was simply inside the room. The air conditioner was making that irregular noise, but it seemed more distant now. His breathing was what filled the room, a rhythmic, heavy sound, like a tired man. I looked around. No broken window, no hole. The door was still locked from the inside. I moved closer slowly. He followed me with his eyes without moving his body. When I got close, I saw his fur was different. Not dirty, but wet, like he had been sweating. And the smell, it wasn't the same smell as before. It smelled of iron, of dry blood, of something too alive. I said something, I don't even remember what. I think it was, "How did you get in here?" And I swear he seemed to understand. His head tilted, slightly, the same way mine did when I asked. A reflection, a mirror. The breathing slowed down, and for a second the sound of it became the same as mine. Same rhythm, same timing, as if it were mimicking me. I tried to push him out. Nothing. His body was firm, heavy, warm. I leaned my knee against him to push, and he let out a short sound, like a whimper. But it wasn't a dog's, it was human. Hoarse, low, like someone trying to hold back a laugh. I opened the door, pushed him out, closed it quickly and propped the chair against it again. I leaned against the wall, listening. He didn't bark. He just kept pacing back and forth in the hallway, the sound of dry paws on the carpet, back and forth, back and forth. Then he stopped. Total silence. When I finally gathered the courage to look through the curtain crack, he wasn't there anymore. But on the window glass, right in the middle, there was a handprint. Not a paw print, a handprint. I stayed awake all night. Every sound, every creak seemed to come from inside the room. In the end, I fell asleep, sitting up, with the light on and the car key in my hand. In the morning, I went down to return the key and leave. The new receptionist asked me if I was with my dog. She said he had spent the night lying in front of the office, looking at the door, quiet, that he seemed to be waiting for someone. When I went out to see, he was indeed there, lying on the floor, clean, calm, but with his eyes fixed on me. I got in the truck and drove away. He kept watching. In the rearview mirror, I saw him get up and start walking slowly down the middle of the road in the same direction as me. Then he vanished in the heat haze. I drove the rest of the whole day with the radio off, but what got to me the most was the sound coming from the back seat. A breath, slow and identical to mine. I spent the rest of the day trying to convince myself that none of it was real, that the heat had messed with my head, that the dog just followed me, and that was it. I drove to the next town, had lunch at a roadside stop. I ate slowly, watching the movement of the flies on the window. No one looked at me. Everyone was living their own day, normal, and that irritated me. I was sweating cold, shaking, and no one noticed. In the bathroom, I looked in the mirror and saw that my eyes were red. The skin on my face was slightly swollen, as if I hadn't slept for days. I turned on the faucet, washed my face, and listened to the sound of the water hitting the sink. That's when I noticed the noise. Breathing. Low, behind me. I spun around quickly. Nothing. Just the half-open door and the sound of the old fan spinning on the ceiling. I went back to the truck. He was there. In the passenger seat now, I had left the truck locked. I stopped. I took a deep breath. Okay, I said out loud to myself. Maybe someone let him out. Maybe he got in when I went to pay. But deep down, I knew the dog didn't. Looked tired, not hungry, not thirsty. He looked observing. I got back on the road, heading straight home. During the drive, the sun slowly set. The light turned orange, then red. I saw his shadow on the dashboard. and I swear sometimes the shadow looked bigger than the body. It seemed to stretch. I got home close to 9. My house is simple, at the end of a dirt road, near a low hill. I got out, opened the door, and let him in. He walked slowly, sniffed the floor, the sofa, then lay down near the kitchen. Nothing strange, nothing. I took a shower, ate whatever, left the radio on just to hear a human voice. The night was warm, no wind. For a while, I almost forgot the fear. But close to midnight, the dog started to move. He got up slowly, as if he had heard something. He went to the window. He stood there, looking out. I asked, "What is it?" And that's when everything I believed collapsed. Because when I spoke, he turned his head and answered, not with clear words, but with a sound, a hoarse sound, almost a whisper. And it was my voice, trying to imitate the way I spoke. Wrong, drawn out, but it was it. I dropped my cup. The voice came out again, firmer. "Daniel." I backed up until I hit the wall. He stayed there, looking at me, his mouth slightly open, his teeth showing. His breathing was the same as mine, at the same rhythm. I stood still for a few seconds, my mind blank, my whole body shaking. Then he lay down again, as if nothing had happened. I slept on the living room floor with the light on. But in the middle of the night, I heard the voice again. It wasn't coming from him. It was coming from outside the house. And it was my voice, calling my own name. I should have left that house that night, got in the truck and driven away without looking back. But I stayed. I stayed trying to understand. I tried to believe it was the wind or someone passing by. The first time I heard it, I thought I was dreaming. The second, I knew I wasn't. It was my voice outside, low, as if speaking into the throat, calling my name. "Daniel!" I got up slowly, my heart pounding. I looked through the kitchen window. Nothing. Just the dry yard, the old fence, and the desert starting right beyond. The moon was thin, slicing the sky like a blade. The dog was awake, standing at the door, looking out too. Not barking, not growling, just listening. The sound came again, closer. "Daniel, open!" I felt my skin crawl all over. It was my voice, but wrong. As if someone had learned to reproduce the sound, but not the rhythm. The open came out, drawn out, breathless. The dog turned its head towards me slowly. And at that moment I realized that it knew what it was, that whatever was out there was not a man, and that he was part of it. I took 2 steps back. The dog started pacing in a circle as if preparing for something. The sound outside got louder. Now it seemed to come from all sides. "Daniel, come here." The voice changed. Suddenly it was another worried female, my ex's voice. Same intonation, same way of calling. "Danny, please." I almost went to the door. My body wanted to go. It was automatic. Then the dog let out a sound, a mixture of a growl and a vocalization. Something like "no" came out, hoarse, short, broken. Then he stared at the door, baring his teeth. The doorknob turned. Slowly, it turned once more, then it stopped. I held my breath. The whole house fell silent. Not even the wind was moving. Then came the sound, a laugh, not loud, not forced. That short, wrong laugh. The same one from the truck on the first night. But now, it sounded closer, more human. The dog lay down, calm as if he had finished what he needed to do. The voice disappeared. The silence became heavy, as if the air had density. I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, and stayed there until the sun rose. No sleep, no blinking. The dog didn't move, but I swear, in the dark, I could still hear my voice, outside, repeating low, "Daniel." On the 3rd day, the sound didn't stop anymore. It wasn't loud or constant. It was the kind of sound that only appears when you try to relax, between one breath and the next, between a sip of coffee and the silence. The voice came faintly, always from outside the house. Sometimes it was mine. Sometimes someone I knew. Sometimes no one's. I tried to ignore it, but the dog, or whatever it was, never took its eyes off the windows. It seemed to be waiting for something. At night, it sat in the middle of the room, facing the door, without blinking, breathing slowly at the same rhythm as me. On the morning of the fourth day, I found the footprints. They started in the yard, coming from the desert. They were human, barefoot, deep in the dry sand. They circled the whole house. Some looked fresh. You could even see the nail marks on the toes. And the worst part was that there were pairs going back and forth, as if someone had walked around the house all night. I went to the truck. The doors were open. The seats were covered in dust as if it had been parked there for weeks, but I had used the truck the day before. The key was still with me. The dog came after me. It didn't make a sound. I realized it never made a sound, not the sound of its paws nor its breathing. I only heard it when it wanted me to. And at that moment, it did. I went to the gate, looked out at the desert. Nothing. But I had the feeling of being watched. Not from one spot, from many. You know when you feel like people are behind you, even without hearing anything? It was that. The air seemed heavier, denser, as if someone was breathing along with me. I went back inside. I closed everything. I covered the cracks with towels, turned the radio up to maximum volume, just to have some sound that wasn't the silence. But even so, between songs, I heard it. Outside, footsteps, slow, heavy. When night fell, I noticed shadows passing through the yard. I didn't see them directly. I saw them in the reflection of the TV, low shapes walking on all fours. But the sound was of people, the sound of feet on the gravel. The dog started pacing back and forth, restless. Then it stopped and looked at me. And for the first time, I swear I saw an expression on its face, sadness or pity, as if it knew what was going to happen. Around 2 in the morning, the power went out. Everything went black. The radio stopped. The silence returned. That's when the noise on the roof started. Footsteps, slow, dragging from one side to the other. Then something scraping the metal like long nails. The dog lay down, trembling. I stood up, my heart pounding, not daring to turn on the flashlight. The steps stopped right above me, and then 3 knocks, dry, on the ceiling. Then a voice, whispering, right in the ceiling lining. "Daniel, open. It's all right." The voice was perfect now. There were no more errors. It was, mine. I looked at the dog. He was looking at the ceiling, his body rigid. And suddenly, silently, he moved his mouth, as if mimicking the movement of the voice, as if repeating what was being said up there. That's when I understood. He wasn't running away from it. He was part of it. And now it wanted to come in. I don't remember deciding anything. Just remember my body acting on its own. I grabbed the flashlight, even with my hand shaking, and pointed it at the ceiling. The sound no longer came only from above. It came from the walls, the floor, as if the house was breathing with me. The dog started pacing in circles again, growling low. But the growl was strange. It seemed to come from inside the wall, not its throat. The air grew heavy, hot. The smell of iron returned, mixed with something rotten, damp, like meat left in the sun. I took 2 steps toward the kitchen door. I heard a creak, like wood being pushed from outside in. The doorknob moved, slowly, a click, then another. The dog stopped, looked at the door, then at me. And for the first time, I saw him back away. The wood cracked, and the sound, that sound, came through the crack. Human breathing, strong, uneven, as if someone had been running for a long time and stopped there, leaning against the door. I could hear the chest rising and falling. "Daniel," the voice was mine. But now I heard another one with it, deeper, scratchy, inside the same sound, like 2 voices trying to occupy the same space. I said, "Go away." The thing on the other side mimicked, "Go away." The difference was that it laughed afterward, low, short, a dry-throated laugh. The dog started to howl, but the howl was broken, full of air, almost a scream. The flashlight flickered once, twice. It went out, I was in the dark, only the sound of breathing, mine and hers, mixed. I felt something heavy leaning on the door. The wood gave way millimeters. I could hear the sound of nails scratching slowly until they found the metal of the lock. When the light came back on, I saw, only for an instant, underneath the crack, two shadows, paws or hands, I couldn't tell. Too thin, too long, moving in sync. I backed up until I hit the chairs. The thing pushed again but stopped. Silence. The dog lay on the floor, trembling, looking at me with its light eyes. For a second, I swear I saw the reflection of my own face in its eyes. Not like a light reflection, but as if I were in there, as if he were looking at me from the outside in. The voice whispered once more, now leaning against the window, "It's cold out here. Let me in." And then, total silence. No sound, no wind, as if the whole world had stopped to wait for my answer. When the silence was complete, I understood that the thing was waiting for me to move, not to breathe, not to speak, just to move. I remained motionless for perhaps a whole minute, or an hour, I don't know. The flashlight went out again. The dog got up, growling, but the sound came out hoarse, failed, as if it was being cut off from inside. Then he looked at me and took a step back, slowly, as if telling me to go, not with gestures, with his gaze. I grabbed the truck key, took a deep breath, and went to the back door. The floor creaked under my feet. The air was warmer. The smell of iron and burnt meat came from all sides. I opened the back door just enough to slip out. Outside, the desert was only darkness and still wind. The thin moon made the ground silvery. And there, near the fence, I saw movement. 3, maybe 4 figures, low, thin, moving too fast. From afar, they looked like dogs. Up close, they didn't. I ran to the truck. I opened the door and got in, my heart pounding. When I turned the key, the engine sputtered, once, twice. On the third try, it started. The headlight came on and illuminated the entire yard. The figures froze. They didn't hide, they just stood watching. 2 standing, 1 on all 4s, and 1 seemed to be kneeling. The dog ran out of the house and stopped in front of the headlight. I shouted the name I never gave him, anything. He looked at me, ears down, his body trembling, and started walking slowly backward toward the others. That's when I noticed that one of them moved just like him. Same pace, same head angle, mirrored. And then, when the wind came back, I heard the voice. It came from all directions, my own words mixed up, repeated in wrong echoes. "Come, Daniel, come, open, it's all right." I floored it. The truck sped away, kicking up dust and gravel. I looked in the rearview mirror. The dog was still looking at me, but now he was standing up, 2 legs. I drove without looking again. The radio turned on by itself, even though it was off. Static, then a low voice. "Mine. It's no use running." I hit the radio with my hand, turned it off. The sound continued. This time, coming from under the seat. Something moved down there, a damp, dragging sound, as if something was breathing. Inside the car, I stopped in the middle of the road. I opened the door and got out. The desert wind was warm and the ground vibrated slightly, as if something was walking underneath. The sound of voices continued, farther away now, but everywhere. There were several of them, and they all tried to sound human. I walked around the truck, grabbed the flashlight and illuminated the ground. Footprints circling the vehicle, many, all identical to mine. I ran, I don't know where, I just know I ran. Until the headlight got small, until the engine sound disappeared, until the air tore at my throat. And there, in the middle of nowhere, I stopped. Behind me, in the dark, a laugh. Low, tired, but human. And further ahead, in the direction I was running, another one. I don't know how long I stood in that desert. The sky was already light when I realized I had been walking in circles. My footprints crossed each other, as if I had been circling the same spot all night. The wind was hot, but the air seemed still thick. The sound of the laughter had disappeared, but I could still hear something very far away. like someone coughing or trying to breathe. And deep in the distance, among the rocks, I saw movement. It looked like a man. From afar, I could have sworn it was me. Same shirt, same way of walking, same tired stride. He was walking toward me, slowly, without haste. And the dog, or what was the dog, was right behind him. I stopped. He stopped too. I raised my arm. He raised his, but a second late, as if he was still learning. I started to understand. It wasn't just about imitating, it was about replacing. He smiled, a short, tense smile, like mine. And then he spoke. It's all right now. The voice was identical. Not similar, identical. Even the broken tone when I get nervous, the same. I took a step back. He took a step forward. The dog, that body I had rescued, started walking around us as if it were the bridge between the two. I remembered the first night. The laugh, the window, the handprint on the glass. It all made sense now. He wasn't chasing me. He was learning. Every breath, every sound, every reaction, everything I did, he stored. The thing spoke again. You can rest now. And when he said that, the dog lay down, head between its paws, and its body became motionless, rigid. The air around seemed to vibrate. My ears started ringing, my stomach churned. Then I realized the sound of breathing I was hearing was no longer mine. It was his, and it came from inside my chest, as if my lungs were no longer just mine. I ran. I didn't look back. The sun was rising and the horizon was shimmering with heat, but I swear I saw shadows following me, moving fast, in the same cadence as my steps, as if they were echoes, as if the entire desert was repeating my body. When I reached the road, I collapsed onto the hot asphalt. I lay there, face down, breathing deeply, trying to believe it was all exhaustion, too much sun, hallucination. But there, on the side of the road, about 20 meters from me, stood a man, his back to me. Same height, same clothes. He turned slowly and looked at me with my own eyes. I woke up on the shoulder, my face stuck to the hot asphalt. The sun was high, the air vibrating. For a while I didn't remember anything, just the taste of rust in my mouth and the sound of my heart. The road was empty, no cars, no sound. Just the dry wind passing over the sand and that distant hum that the desert sometimes makes when it's too hot. I got up with difficulty. My legs were shaking. I looked around. There were no footprints near me. But there, a little further away, I saw two trails going in opposite directions. One of bare footprints and another of paws. I walked with a limp to where I thought I had left the truck. It was there, but different. The hood was open, the seat full of sand, the steering wheel sun-scorched. It looked like it had been parked there for days. I opened the door. A strong smell rose up. Dust, oil, and something rotten. On the passenger seat, the blanket I had left for the dog was still there, but folded, perfectly folded. I walked away on the road. I walked until I saw the gas station on the horizon. It took hours. The man at the counter recognized me. He said I had passed by 2 days before asking about a dog. 2 days? But to me, it had only been a few hours. He looked at me strangely. He asked if I was all right. He said someone exactly like me had come back later that night, who stood in the parking lot laughing, looking at the blinking sign, then disappeared into the desert. I didn't answer. I got water, washed my face in the bathroom. When I looked in the mirror, I swear I didn't immediately recognize myself. The face was mine, yes, but the way I was breathing, the rhythm, it seemed out of sync. On the road back to Gallup, the radio turned on by itself, static, then a low voice. Mine, but scratchy, hoarse. You left him there. I switched the radio off, but the sound kept coming. Now, from the back seat, I looked in the mirror. Nothing, just the blanket, still folded. When I got home, the silence was so deep I could hear my own pulse. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dog standing on the road. The thin body, the fixed gaze, as if waiting for me to come back to finish what he started. Now, every night, when the wind changes direction, I hear footsteps outside. They don't run, they don't knock on the door. They just walk slowly around the house. And sometimes, when sleep comes, I hear the sound of my voice, calmer, surer, telling me to open up. And the worst part is, for an instant, it always seems like a good idea. It's been 3 weeks since that night. I still wake up in the middle of the night with the sound of the laugh stuck in my head. I no longer know if it was his or mine. There are things the desert doesn't return the same, and I think part of me stayed there. Now every night I hear footsteps outside, and sometimes when the wind stops, I hear someone speaking with my voice, calling my name, asking me to open. So, if you're listening to this now, pay attention. These things like new voices, they like curious people. Subscribe to the channel, stay close, because when they come to call you, you'll want to remember my voice, to know which one is the right one.